Something ate my childhood, but my social worker says I've made it all up. By MTLStoriesPaty. I've been told many times that my memories are all wrong. I've been told that the things I saw, the things I experienced, the things I felt, they're all wrong. And sometimes I think that maybe they're right. Because the thing is, memories are funny things. Apparently, a human's memory is limitless. But an important factor in consolidating memories is sleep. Without it, they say your brain has a hard time remembering anything. So, how do they expect me to tell you this whole story adequately when I have barely slept through all those months? I barely ate. I barely survived. I tried to remember how I wound up there. I tried to remember where everything had gone wrong, but I came to realize it never really mattered. Not for us, at least. Not for those who were forgotten in cages and left to fend for themselves. They were deformed in an inhuman way. Their freakish limbs swung in violent movements. They didn't know how to touch us, handle us. They only knew how to throw us around. They communicated in a strange language. They looked so different, so alien to me, which is how I figured that these things were the creatures my grandpa had told me about a long time ago. Creatures from another place, another planet. They tried to speak to me, but I couldn't understand their alien language. I honestly don't know why they even tried. I was obviously human. They were obviously not. There were hundreds of us, children. They seemed to only want children for whatever reason. I remember slowly walking up to the door, shaking uncontrollably, and trying to make out the other children's faces through the tears that were forming in my eyes. The other kids didn't seem to notice me when I first entered the cold, barbed wire cage. I suppose it's because they had gotten used to children coming and going. I spent the first 2 days curled up in a ball as my body quivered. I don't even know how else to recollect. No one had taught me how to react around aliens. I listened to my heavy breathing as it hyperventilated to the beat of my heart, which pounded violently inside my chest. I had sweat on my forehead and an enormous fear of an impending doom in my chest. But I was proud that at least I didn't cry. I reminded myself that I was 9 years old, and that was old enough not to cry. Eventually, I dozed off to sleep, hugging my own body for comfort. I let my mind float away into memories of another time. Her name was Anita. She was a feisty, bright, clever girl, the type of girl I'd been jealous of at school. Anita came to me in my first week inside the cage and whispered softly into my ear, "It's going to be okay. I've been here for some time. It gets better." Somehow, I immediately knew to trust her. Children's intuition, I guess. She quickly taught me the ropes of things. Don't take the pills they may give you. Don't believe anything anyone tells you. Pretend you're okay. If you start making problems, they'll take you away, and most of them don't come back. We talked about elaborate and ridiculous ways to escape that made us giggle for hours. We talked about the places we had been to. We talked about the things we wanted to be when we grew up. She a horse whisperer, and I an astronaut, although I was quickly changing my mind about my intention with the alien beings. We turned to talking about families we once had, but over time we both forgot if they had ever been real. The food was scarce. I don't think they knew what humans were supposed to eat. According to them, it was mostly water and chips. Sometimes we got frozen sandwiches. Other times, we just got expired juices. The beds were hard, but that wasn't surprising. They had them tossed across the floor, where we had to share them with 6 other kids. On most nights, I'd fall off the mattress and resigned myself to the cement floors. They gave us foil sheets to use as blankets, which was, once again, not surprising. I still don't understand how they did it. They must have conducted secret experiments because all the children seemed to slowly lose their minds. It began with the crying. Some of the kids cried uncontrollably for hours. Then they defecated themselves. They threw themselves against the walls. They picked fights with others. They punched their own faces. They scratched their own bodies. Some became isolated and didn't speak to anyone for days. Others shook in panic randomly throughout the day. The worst was watching the toddlers. They would often cry, longing to be picked up, longing to be loved, and so sometimes I would pick one of them up. I would even kiss her on her chubby little cheeks because I remembered someone had once kissed me on my cheeks too, but I couldn't remember anymore who it had been. I only remembered the feeling. I remembered I was loved once, but I couldn't remember by whom. Like I said, memories are tricky when you can't sleep at night. The alien beings came and went, sometimes with purpose, sometimes aimlessly. Some days they would yell at us, some days they would ignore us. On the bad days, they would hurt us. Those were the worst, but I'd rather not speak of them. They continued bringing in others that had also been abducted. There were times when I couldn't believe how many of us could fit inside those cages. And I wondered, what did they want from us? Anita fell ill. I tried to help her. I rubbed her belly where it ached, but she continued to cry out in pain. They mostly ignored her, but after more than a day of crying, one of the aliens came over to us. For a second, I thought the alien would be gentle, seeing her pain, but he violently ripped her out of my arms. As he pulled her away from me, taking the only good thing I had left in my life, something tripped inside me. It reminded me of something I had lived before, the way the alien yanked her from me, the way I tried to hold on to her, the way my chest felt like it could burst at any second. I had felt this before. It was familiar to me, a faint memory of another time. I went into a rage. I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't control my limbs. I kicked and I screamed, and I yanked and I pulled and I jumped and I punched. Angered, another alien took me as well. I was dragged out of the cage, but I wasn't scared. I was angry. I was so angry. My social worker tells me I'm wrong. He tells me that my memories are all wrong. He tells me that what I remember is something I made up because the event was so excessively traumatic that I envisioned it as something completely different. But I know what I saw, and I know how I felt. After I got dragged out of the cage, I was placed in a room to wait. Eventually, a large alien came inside the room. Before I could say anything, he grabbed me by the arms and opened his mouth. There was a darkness in his mouth that loomed in the waves of a strange, dark matter. He roared loudly at me and slowly took up my entire peripheral vision. All I saw was the darkness that lived inside him, and it hurt so much. I screamed to get him away from me, but it was too late. Before I knew it, he had swallowed it all up, all of it. I still have nightmares about it, the way the darkness took it from me, the way it chewed it, slowly tasting it through the taste buds, swallowing it up bit by bit, memory by memory, trauma by trauma. I ate my childhood. That's what they did. That was their purpose, I guess. They ate children's childhoods, leaving them destroyed for the length of their lives. Sometimes they ate it slowly over months. Sometimes they ate it quickly. Mine was gone in just a second, or at least what was left of it, and I was no longer a child. I was just this thing that couldn't remember anything before the time I had lived in the cage. You know, they say memories can be tricky. They insist my memories are all wrong. They say that I never was abducted by aliens. They tell me I've made it all up. And my eyes fill up with tears because I've been remembering certain things lately. I remember that I grew up in a small, poverty-ridden place where our floor was made of dirt. I remember that I had a mom once. I remember that she loved me. I think she's the one that kissed my cheeks when I was little. I remember running under the dusk purple skies, giggling at the lizard my brother had caught. But I can't remember their faces anymore. I can't remember their names, their smiles, their smells. They might as well have not existed. And sometimes I wonder if they ever did. Or did I just really make it all up? But it's hard to remember a childhood that got eaten away. I have a vague memory of my mom's arms stretched out longer than is naturally possible, trying her best to hold on to me. But I was ripped from her arms, and I was taken to this cage. But you know, my social worker tells me that I'm wrong, that I was never abducted. She tells me that there were no aliens. Maya, she says, emphasizing my name. The people who took care of you, they were not aliens, Maya. It was you. You're the illegal alien. I don't know. I guess it might be true, and I really can't remember much. But I think I had a family once. I think I was loved once. I think I even had a childhood. But memories are so tricky. It's hard to remember your childhood when you still can't sleep at night.